Hello and welcome to this week's weekly market update. I'm your host, Zach Strickland, the Sultan of SONAR, and we are going to be running down a few things that we're seeing in this week's freight market over the past week, and maybe a little bit of what's about to happen moving forward. So I believe we left off last week going into the 4th of July holiday saying this is pretty standard every year where markets kind of take a breather. Shippers, they push a bunch of production off their dock. Inventory levels go out into the stores, and they're ready for the consumers to drink their bottled waters and go and purchase grills and all sorts of stuff this time of year. So they tend to really make sure that they have this big push of inventory so it's ready for consumers to purchase as they hit the holidays. And then right around the holiday, you have people taking a lot of vacations, shippers and drivers, carriers alike. They all take a little bit of a holiday, but this is a natural cycle of how the economy works. Last week, we showed you the cash shipper index. Every July, the shipping volumes drop a little bit, and that's a natural thing to happen in terms of market activity. They've made these big pushes of inventory into the stores, and now they're going to take a little break as people go out and buy them and people take vacations. So I'm going to show you that this is actually a very natural thing in terms of our employment indices. So what I'm going to pull up here is the BLS retail employment not seasonally adjusted. And what's that going to show you? Well, the BLS takes a monthly survey of employment levels in certain industries, and this one specifically is the retail industry. So what I wanted to show you, and specifically why it's not seasonally adjusted, is because I want you to see these bumps. They'll go in and smooth out these lines for the seasonally adjusted, but I wanted you to see this natural bump of retail activity. So they're going to employ more people when people are out there buying more stuff. It's just a natural tendency. So you see here, every July, we have this little bump, and that's because July the 4th happens, middle of summer, everybody's in peak summer mode, buying their new shoes and clothes, and they're just more active when it gets warmer. Obviously, here's the Christmas season as they ramp up for that, so it makes it look a little bit less impactful in terms of scale, but this is still a solid ramp-up situation for retail, and that's just natural what we have at the end of June as people are making sure that they have inventories stocked at that point in time. So let's take a look at the market itself, and we'll look at the 1 week change in the outbound tender rejection index. For those of you not familiar with the outbound tender rejection index at this point, I recommend going to our website, freightwaves.com/sonar, or you can get there through the FreightWaves site and educate yourselves a little bit more on what that might mean. Effectively, the tender rejection index is something that measures carrier activity. So when they're rejecting loads, it means that they don't want to carry them, and that can lead to spot market activity, and that leads to higher rates in general when they're rejecting a lot of loads. So looking at this map, we don't see as much heated activity as we have in the month of June. We see a couple of isolated markets right here, and I'm going to dive into Portland real fast, and we're going to look at Portland just to see what Portland is all about right now. It looks like it has had a significant spike in tender rejections. So otri.pdx, our Portland name, and you can see right here there's a huge swing of outbound tender rejections in Portland. If I were a carrier and I was going into the Pacific Northwest, I would probably it would be a lot better situation right now. I could get a load out of Portland probably at a lot better rate than I'm used to. As you can see, tender rejection for Portland market itself is pretty low in general. It's been ramping up a little bit more as freight volumes have increased in the general market. I'm going to throw the outbound tender rejection index for the United States on here so you can see a quick comparison. It's still relatively low compared to the national average, but it had a big spike in the last week. So probably some freight there to take advantage of if you are a carrier. I'm going to show you one more thing before we sign off for the week, and this is kind of a new occurrence that we just saw in our FreightWaves Baltic Index. So we have, what I've typed in here is the FBX CNAW. What that stands for is the FreightWaves Baltic Index, China to North American West Coast. So everything that's coming off the coast of China and into the ports of Los Angeles, Seattle, Long Beach. These are the 40-foot container spot market rates that are happening right now. They typically indicate how much container freight volume and or capacity there is in the market right then. So last week we had been seeing this cooling effect, and then all of a sudden, bam, a huge jump, and that could be an indication of things to come. Obviously, the tariffs that Trump has put in went into effect last week, so it's a little anomalous there. But what we're thinking is that shippers have kind of gone into a more emotional state in China and decided to just bring their freight over to make sure that they're not necessarily caught off guard if more tariffs come into play. Now, the shipping lines could also be having something to do with taking advantage of these emotional political games that are going on right now, but it's hard to say which one. It's probably a little bit of both right now, but I would look for some activity in the Los Angeles market or the West Coast here soon, as that freight might be coming off the ports with some activity. So that's all we've seen for this week. Hope everybody had a really good 4th, and please visit FreightWaves.com to get any more market insights, and also click on the SONAR buttons if you want to learn more about SONAR. Thank you.